Hello friends, Jennifer Pearson here, Thistle Gypsy. And yeah, I've got the Dark Mirror Oracle cards here. And part of the reason I got this, and I'm not remember, somebody I've recently subscribed to, and a newer channel, and she had done a review of this. And I don't remember if that was why I subscribed to her. I don't think so. I think I was going through people's autumn, decks that they were using. And I think I discovered her that way. And she had some interesting things to say about this deck. And I had looked at it once on Amazon, and I saw the way, the image is all cut up, and I thought, ugh, just can't do that. But then she pointed out some things. For one thing, when I looked at it again, I thought, wow, it's a dark mirror, and you can see here that there's a split in it, in the wording also. And so I can see that as being something that is challenging. It's fragmented. So I think that that's very intentional and makes sense with the overall theme of the deck. That somehow you're not seeing things correctly. Things are askew. Things are fragmented. The whole picture isn't there. There are some other reviews of this deck out there that go through them as they come in the box, and I decided to do it a little differently. So one of the things, too, that was pointed out that I certainly didn't get just looking on Amazon is that it's moon phases. So what you have here are 32 cards, which again is usually another turnoff for me. I like to have a deck that at the very least is 44, and I really prefer decks that are 52 or more, almost especially oracle decks, just to show that they've been developed to that extent. So lots of things were turning me off about this deck. But then it was, again, it was mentioned that there are moon phases here. So what I decided to do was to put all of the moon phases together. So what we have is 4 8-phase moon cycles. So essentially 4 months. And I think that's a really interesting thing to have available as a deck also. Because, if you're looking at something and you're wondering what, if it's something that could potentially happen within a 4-month period, this could give you kind of down to, gosh, what would that be? Within a few days, even, depending, up to a month, So we're starting with, and I don't know all of the names of all of the moon phases, but this is going dark. We're starting going dark. And what I wanted to see, which I'm not going to be able to determine within this particular, I don't think, within this particular walkthrough, is whether the moon phases have a particular theme that runs through them. In any case, Dark Mirror, it is a dark deck. It's about dark states of mind or dark states of being. And other people have talked about the guidebook too, and I haven't delved into it too much. But part of the reason that I decided to get it and give it a closer look, for one thing, if I recall correctly, it's not very expensive. This is it a low scarabeo? Yeah. And it's got the various languages. So what is it, 46 pages in total. In the first part. And so let me even look at this. So my eyes just lighted down on this paragraph. It says, still, even with all the faults of being human, it's a little cliche to see darkness as our only way to be real and true to ourselves. It's not that. And I agree with that. Darkness, as light, as hope, as energy, is an ingredient to life, a part of the spiritual as much as it is a part of the emotional and of the physical. Darkness is also a metaphor for many psychological processes we go through every day. It's not an unknown world, neither is an unexplored and dangerous land. It's just a part of us. So it looks at what it says, 5 concepts of grief processing. And I think that that's a really interesting focus to have for a deck. And as I get older, I will almost certainly be doing a lot of grief processing as I lose people. This is always something I've been amazed at. You know, when I was younger and was watching people my age and older going through losing a lot of people, how they managed to do it with the aplomb that they apparently did. So we have the 5 aspects. Well, let me just read this. It says grief processing. Pain, mourning, grief, they happen. They come, they stay. And that is so true. So many people I've known, especially who've lost a spouse, it's a very long process. And they can break us apart. Our mind cannot fight grief directly. Instead, it slowly processes through the emotions with time, which makes sense then to giving it moons. Walking through 5 different stages. So I kind of wonder why they didn't make this 5 different months or something, but oh well. So number 1 is denial. And also, since there's 8 phases in here, so this is on a 4-8 system here, the actual cards themselves, whereas the concepts supposedly are on a 5-10 number system, so that's a little jarring. But anyway, denial. Do I want to read all of these now? Well, maybe I will, because maybe let's see if there's much relevance here. So, denial. In this stage, we try to numb our emotions to the pain. We're refusing to accept the event which brought on the feeling. So grief isn't necessarily about death. It's just about grieving something. I once, and I thought it was so useful and so smart, went to a group that at a job placement agency that had grief counseling over the loss of your job. And it's like, yes, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that. So it's not, it's anything that creates grief. Certainly the loss of a relationship, even if it's not through death. The loss of a concept of who we are. Certainly with my Lyme disease, there have been lots of grief, having to let go of lots of things. So, denial. In this stage, we try to numb our emotions to the pain. We're refusing to accept the event that brought on the feelings. We try to delude ourselves that it didn't happen, or that what happened can be turned around. Anger. Once we cannot numb our emotions and act like they aren't there anymore, we give space to anger. We redirect those still too painful to bear emotions outside. So instead of internalizing them, we're shooting them out. We blame, we fight, we scream, we take it out. The bargain. Once anger subsides and we have exhausted our strength, we try to cope with the grief by postponing it, making it less severe or less urgent. Yeah, I'll grieve about it later. I just need to get this done and I need to get this done. And I think I still do that. It's like, I don't have time for this now. We try to talk our way out of the consequences, accepting what we want to hear and rejecting what we don't. Depression. As bargaining is doomed to fail, we take all of our emotions inside, bringing them in the darkest cave of our heart. We let them fester, and we hide them from the outside, letting them gnaw at our inside as we bring out a mask of indifference. And there is more than one mask card in this deck. Acceptance. Ultimately, even our self-destructive effort will fail. Rather than destroy ourselves, we somehow digest these emotions and make them part of our being. We allow sadness in, and by being sad, we express our grief and move forward. And here we have something that says going dark. We fear the dark. So these are parts of the understanding of each card, I believe. So, so you have a description of the card, you have a sentence that goes with it, maybe I'll learn the appropriate names of the phases of the moon here. And then the stage is a bargain. So I'll have to get straight on the phases. So the bargain is I won't deal with it now, I'll deal with it later. So this going dark is we fear the dark, yet sometimes we need to embrace our fear and walk through it. It is not an easy task because even if we are strong, the darkness can also be strong. It is part of us and strikes where we are weak. It is a necessary process sometimes. Stare into the darkness, walk into the darkness, and let the darkness in. Look into a dark mirror. So what is the going into the dark for this card? So this is the first card. We've got here look like mannequins, most of which are headless. These are just the tops of the mannequins down here. They've got their dapper clothing on, and up here you've got a mannequin. It's got pearls on it, and voila, you have a skull atop of it. So, so what is the going dark with this called Triumph of Lies, which is a bargain. So it is about masking it. The Triumph of Lies is about appearance. The appearance is always so important in the world, and appearance is always so important in the world. Day by day, it seems more important. Can that be a lie too? So I can see how that would be part of the bargain. I just don't have, I can't be looking sad. I can't be looking grief-stricken. I have to go on, when it can be one of those things where it's like the bargain is when I don't have to perform to look good, then I'll process the grief. We seek to be what the world outside desires and not necessarily society at large. Our family or partners or friends place judgments on what we should be. So, if we should be strong, for example, during the grief process. In the dress we choose, we carve a mask of expectations, behaviors, and values to live by. It offers stability to ourselves and to our relations, as being honest and true to ourselves can be too tiring, too easy to make us hurt. Unfortunately, the relationship with our mask is not as straightforward as it feels. Inside the mask, envy grows, vanity takes root, lack of self-confidence becomes a habit. It gnaws at us and hurts us from the inside. So I'm not sure if they're saying that this is an expression. In other words, if we lean too much toward fashioning ourselves toward others' expectations, that is somehow an expression of some unexpressed grief. And so I'm just skimming here to see. And it doesn't really address that, so maybe I'll end up being disappointed by the guidebook. I don't know. Or the cards or the deck. You just never know. This was definitely a risky purchase in terms of not really knowing. So let me see if all the gibbous, all the waxing gibbuses are bargains. Where's our next? Waxing gibbous, no, that's denial. So this is denial. 17 is denial. And 25. Wait a minute, that's not right. Whoops. Yeah. Oh. There's another way that the guidebook is not correct. This is waning. It's not waxing. Let me see. Yeah. So, oh gosh, so this is not correct. Here, this is what we have on this card right here, is a waning. And yet they're calling it a waxing. So they're giving us the wrong stage here. The wrong moon stage that's featured on the card. And they're consistently wrong. Let me see. So much for, so much for learning the moon phases through this. I'll have to go through and cross these out and make them correct. And this is depression. So, yeah, so things aren't staying. And with 32 cards, there's no way for them to have an even number, evenly distributed phases, those 5 phases. So there it is. I just wanted to sort of explore that. We're going to keep these cards the way they are, the way I've arranged them. So this would be a waning gibbous, I guess. This is the first. Maybe I should. Again, I'm relying too much on the fact that you've seen them elsewhere. But let's take a look. Okay, so we have Triumph of Lies. Envious Gluttony, which I think is just a fantastic, just the phrase, envious gluttony, and she's got her head in these outrageous jaws. It's like alligator jaws or something. Because I've known people who have envious gluttony. It's like they have more than another person has, but it doesn't keep them from wanting what the other person has. And yeah, it's definitely somewhat crazy. forgetting oneself, and it seems to me like there are some repetitions of this, and this could be another deal breaker for me too, is if there are too many cards that have the same meaning. Fated to suffer. The temple of my body, which is kind of weird because I don't know if she's shape-shifting here or what, but you know, she's got wings in her hair and she appears to be a fawn or have, you know, and I'm not sure what's going on with her fingers. Her eyes are red, so I don't know what's going on. The temple of my body. Colorless angel, and I think that this is a man. And sometimes it's not clear to me what's going on in the background here, but there is a horse here. Naked before the stars. An interesting idea. I like the language, but it doesn't appear that there's stars. It's like a laser light show going on behind her or something. Peaceful among thorns. So that could be, that strikes me as denial. So what are they giving that one? 26, what are they calling it? Out of curiosity. Here they're calling that acceptance. Peaceful among thorns. We talk too much about spiritual stuff, spiritual that, spiritual this. Not that the spiritual side isn't important, especially in an age when everything seems reduced to a materialistic drive. But aren't we going too much to the other side? I have a money problem. Go spiritual. I have a health problem. Go spiritual. I have a love problem. Think of true love and go spiritual. This is cracking me up. I want to have sex. Go spiritual. If we were truly able to solve problems like this, what is spiritual would have been sold? What is spiritual would have been sold in grocery stores. Sometimes to solve money problems, you need money, and to solve love problems, you need to fuck. Well, that's not exactly right, but anyway, strange but true. Getting spiritual is not what solves our problems. It is what gives depth to our solutions. It makes them meaningful. I can see how they're leading up to acceptance here. It takes us from the small to the wide, from the river to the ocean. But sometimes we are not ready to make it our center, and therefore it's perfectly fine if we do not. And the sentence that goes with this card is the spiritual can't solve the material, but it can transcend it. So, interesting message. Okay, obsession. And I assume that these images are what I call curated. In other words, they already existed, and somebody decided that they wanted to make a deck using this artist's images, and this is how it's been done. So this is called obsession, but they're not obsessing over that little light disc in their hands. This person is looking elsewhere. I do get obsession out of these creepy things over the head that seems to be growing out of the person's head. You know, it's like the thoughts are starting to take over the person's body. We have addicted, and there is a chain there. Parasites. And I suppose it's the vine that's a potential parasite. Somewhere in there, there's also a face. I don't know if you can see where her eye socket is. There seems to be a mouth and a nose. Parasite. Fragmentation. And this person, it's like she's become a bust in her upper part. There seems to be hands here, but something maybe is weighing her down, or maybe she's trying to escape it and it's tearing her apart. So pretty intense images. Is this me? Okay. Artificial heart. And I think she's supposed to kind of be like a robot or something. What do they call them in Blade Runner? Replicants? Something like that. Downcast pride. I'm not sure what that one's about. Perchance to dream. To sleep, perchance to dream. I'm not sure what's going on there. Gilded regret. So I'm going to pull a card when we're done and see if I can make it relate in any way to my life. Blinded to pain. This I find a disturbing card, just that those flies are there. So blinded to their own pain, blinded to the pain of others. Which I think is very true, you know. And this I don't particularly like. I don't like that there's not much of a central image here. So this is anger and chaos. And that there's not a central image makes sense for chaos, but it doesn't make much sense for anger, which to me is a consolidating. There is a lion up here, but otherwise it's just sort of a bunch of arabesques and angles kind of thrown together that don't quite speak anger to me. Maybe the red cross there does. Bride in a cage. Yep. And a skull, and then of course a picture of Goofy on the back wall. And this cage is apparently a laser cage. And some of that, so to me there's almost futuristic, or it's not steampunk because, you know, that would be placed in history. But yeah, I would just say kind of the inclusion of either present or futuristic elements with things that are not doesn't work so well for me. It's not a reason that I would forego using the deck, but it just makes it a little uncomfortable for me. Alone in the world. So that's a very pretty image for being alone in the world, but it certainly gets the point across. Hiding your true self. I don't know why this is so popular these days. It says, "I won't cry for you," and I do like that phrase for a card. But what is this bloody tears thing that strikes me as really popular these days? Like, just to me, that's just ew, you know. And so that isn't quite a tear that she has there. It's almost like a little. There's a heart shape, and it's almost like it's a little vial of something. So even though it says, "I won't cry for you," it's almost like she's offering her tears. So it's a little contradictory. I do like this, calling the storm. to me that's an anger kind of a, so I'll be curious. I'll have to check in the book here. Calling the storm, 30. So, no more peace, no more truth. So let me see what 30 is. Oh, it's the bargain stage. I thought that it would have been, yeah, the anger stage. So here we have sacrifice. And I'm not sure what she doesn't look like she's ready to sacrifice anything. So maybe she sacrificed her femininity and put on the armor and is ready to go to war. You know, I don't know, masquerade. So even though I'm being somewhat critical of the cards, I'm kind of feeling them out. I don't dislike them, you know, I feel like they're their own thing. I do like some of the messages in the book, and I like kind of where the book is coming from, or the concept is coming from. Whether or not it works will be, you know, is yet to be seen. So this is masquerade, which again is a little, you know, the name here doesn't make full sense to me because, you know, she's wearing a hat, but she's not wearing a mask. Revenge, I think this is a powerful revenge card. I mean, you know, she's coming for you. She's coming for you. Atonement strikes me as an odd use the word atonement for having a lot of swords in your back. Maybe you're accepting a lot of abuse or something because you feel guilty for something, and so that you deserve this. Is that how it works? The child, I was meant to be, like the only really positive card, but something tells me if I were to go to the guidebook, it probably has a negative meaning. Black flower fragrance. So that is something I'll explore here, is whether, you know, does this have a positive meaning? In full moon, black flower fragrance, does that have any sort of positive meaning? So here the full moons are the positive cards. I will say that much. You know, I don't know if black flower fragrance is actually positive, but certainly that is. And then we have Queen of My World. So I assume that that's positive, and that's a full moon card. And then Today for Tomorrow. And I'm assuming that appears to be unity, and that is also a positive card. So there we go. The Dark Mirror Oracle deck. Quite unique in its focus as a dark deck. So I'm going to do some shuffling, and then I think I'll probably split the deck and take a card on the top. Let's see how it shuffles. Shouldn't shuffle too bad. Shuffles actually quite well. Just because, you know, it's a deck without a heck of a lot of cards. So, yeah, shuffles nicely even with my weak hands. Let me do. Oh, and yeah, side shuffle. It bends pretty good for a side shuffle. So yeah, side shuffle also works quite well. Here we go. Here I am, fated to suffer. Well, that's ugly. So let's read about fated to suffer. And what number is that? That's 25. Whoops. Keep going into the other languages. So this, again, they have the moon phases. This is going dark, so it would be waning gibbous. Feeling confined into a script, forced by another, by other, and never really fought. Forced by what? Feeling confined into a script. I think they mean another, forced by another, and never really fought. In other words, you gave up gave up instead of putting up a fight. Heading toward a destination of pain. Visual seed. In the confines of a foggy forest, a misshaped woman hands a green and red apple to a younger woman with red lips, dressed as a servant. So that's what we have there. Very Snow Whitish. If you know the future, you forsake your choices. Okay, only with no fate, life is free to unfold into unknown shores. So it's like not locking yourself into a concept. So it's calling me out, since I picked this card for me, out on any way that I've locked myself into assumptions that will lead to discomfort or are leading to discomfort. And I would say that I do that. I'm not into suffering, but I can see how, I set. I'm not going to actually say that I'm forced by another. I don't think that that's true, actually. But that I set up my own scripts or expectations, and then I like to kind of lock myself into them, to be disciplined about them, and they can not end up being healthy, and then I have to discard them. So I can get into that kind of a cycle. So it says, going dark. Once upon a time, we believed in fairy tales. They were the voice of common sense. Well, I don't know that fairy tales were ever the voice of common sense, but anyway, the educational tool which prepared us to duty, danger, and morals. Some things we would never accept if they were told by a single voice. So the world arranges us to hear them with 1,000 voices. Okay, fair enough, I get that. 1,000,000 voices. It's about what you can do and what you can't do. What are you worth? What can you aspire to? It's about, so yeah, this is like being locked into expectations. Society's expectations is really what they're talking about here. But again, I think for me, it has a lot more to do with my own. It's about what you like, what you want, what you hold dear. It creates a script which becomes as strong as all the voices that believe the script combined. So much that you cannot see another path. Are you truly seeing Snow White in the card? Is this story truly the only one this image can tell? What if the apple is not poisoned? Okay, so they're really going to flip the script on us here. What if the witch is not evil? Is that the same as what you, is that the same, at what you look in your life? I was warned that there was some grammatical issues here, so I don't even know what that's trying to say. Is it truly what you think it is? Are there not any other options? Is the opinion of others honestly better than ours, even if they are many and we are only one? Are you fated to suffer? It is not that there is no suffering in the world. The point is that there is no fate. So yeah, and it's appropriate that this should come up for me in other ways, because I do have the Lyme disease. And I do actually fight the notion that I am fated to suffer. That's why I go all the way to Missouri to see my doctor, to continually fight the notion that it can't be gotten past, that it can't, that things will continue. And I keep trying. I think of it like, I suppose most people won't be able to relate to this, but when you have a horse that you're trying to get it to move in a particular direction and it's fighting you, sometimes if you turn it a little in the opposite direction, or you turn around and you come back the same way, then the horse will yield and go where you want it to go. And so that's often with, that's what I look for. It's like, well, if I do it a little bit this way, and then I could do it this way, and then can we wiggle our way in the direction toward wellness that I want to go, and get past the little resistance and obstructions. But I think it's also on an everyday level, asking me to look at some of my own habits. Anybody who watched during the Self-Love September, when I did a reading with the Conver deck, that I was kind of looking at what percentage of the time I should spend on given things, and just had it completely tell me, no, you're doing it all wrong, flipped my script in certain ways, and said, well, you shouldn't be spending so much time on this, and you should be spending a lot more time on this. And I did take that, not deathly seriously, but I did take it on board, what was being suggested there, in terms of some shifts. And I'm slowly what I'm trying to do is to be aware of this, what truly isn't working, what isn't supporting me, what isn't energizing me. And if I were to shift things the way that Converse suggested, would that in fact be more supportive? Would it eliminate some of this? So I am kind of in a phase where I'm watching for this, where I'm watching for ways that I set myself up for, and again, I don't think it's wider society at this point. I think I set myself up with certain expectations, or even, testing, like with the Lyme disease, every now and then I test where I'm at. Can I do this much? Maybe not, and I have to go back. But then but then I'll reach a point where it's like, well, I'm feeling okay at this level. Can I go back to something that's a little more active, a little more normal? How does that feel? So I'm constantly trying to test those boundaries, and sometimes when I do that, or I get overexcited, it's like, oh, I'm doing really well right now. we're doing really well. Let's take on this. Let's try this, even if it's only for like 4 weeks. Let's take on this and see, surely I can keep it up. I can keep up that state of wellness for 4 weeks or whatever. And, I kind of set myself up for things I probably shouldn't do. So, this could be calling me out on the idea that, maybe I shouldn't be testing my boundaries. Maybe I should be more accepting. Let's look at the grief cycles of being more of a hothouse flower. Goodness knows I ended up that way with my lawn. It was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not mowing my lawn. I would be happy to just let my lawn grow, but my city doesn't allow that. They will tag you with fines if you just let your lawn grow wild. So yeah, I've got somebody who mows my lawn. I pay money to have somebody mow my lawn. After many, many years of not giving in. So let's see. I don't know what that would be, that constant testing, if that would be or not wanting to go into hothouse flower mode. I think that would be denial. But that's a pretty early stage. But maybe there are aspects of denial that just keep coming up. And what is this? Fated to suffer. This was bargain, wasn't it? 25. No, this was depression. And let me look at that. Well, maybe that's because it's assuming that I believe that I am fated to suffer. And I'll give myself credit that I don't feel that way, that I continually push against that. Depression, as bargaining is doomed to fail, we take all of the outsides, all of our emotions inside, bringing them in the darkest cave of our heart. We let them fester and we hide them from the outside, letting them gnaw at our inside as we bring out a mask of indifference. Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm there. I'm not sure that's not that there isn't depression, but I don't think that that's the cause. Anyway, an interesting deck, an interesting way to look at things. I like some of the things, despite the little hitch in the grammar meaning there. For the most part, I like their meanings. I like the challenges that are in the meanings. And I like even the phases, even though I don't like necessarily having phases assigned to the cards, but I do like them there, and to think about, like I just did, how my response to this card and this situation in my life, where I'm at on that grief scale in relation to this. I preferred that to having one of them assigned. But as deck creators, I'm sure that they feel that they're obligated to just tag something on there so people won't be lost and won't know how to deal with it. So yeah, an intriguing deck. I'm glad I've gotten it. I'm not sure how. One of the things I thought was that I might be able to use it for like a dark aspect in a love reading. I'm not sure. This might be actually kind of a deeper deck than that, unless it was a love reading where somebody was breaking up with someone, or there was some negative aspect to the, an acknowledged negative aspect to the relationship that needed to be explored. But I think like in, the love readings that I do on my other channel, to just throw in one of these cards, I think it's just a bit too much. If there's no indication that there's something darker going on, I think that throwing one of these in is just a bit much. Anyway, so I've certainly managed to ramble here. Kudos to anybody who made it all the way through. Yeah, if you get this deck, you can just tell me what you think of it from my review here. But if you get the deck, I will also be curious to hear, or if you have it, how it works for you and what you use it for. All right, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.